Guest is Juan Escobedo, a multi-talented award-winning actor and director. He is also a very talented photographer, with his photography being widely praised. The Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs started publishing Juan's photography in 2012 as part of the City of Los Angeles Heritage Month celebrations. One of his most notable works of photography, Trash and Tears, was a series of photographs depicting models surrounded by trash in an attempt to explore the issues of hoarding, mental health, poverty, and drug addiction. Recently, the Los Angeles Department of Arts and Culture launched a collective memory installation as part of its Illuminate LA initiative. Juan Escobedo was selected to exhibit his work titled El Sombrero de Miguel Lopez, which pays homage to his late grandfather and one of our topics today. Let's welcome award-winning actor, director, and photographer Juan Escobedo to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bond. Thank
Well,
you for
I
having
have
me.
to. Well, you're very well. It's great to have you on the show, and I must ask, what came first for you, acting or photography?
Well, I think photography, I did photography in high school, as an elective class, and I really loved it. Back in the 80s, we used to process our own film and print. And there was something about being in the dark room. I don't the chemicals. I don't know what it was. The water dripping. It was just so many elements in the dark room that when you were in there, you were just hearing everything and trying to figure out what was coming up on the Kodak paper, and it was just the most amazing feeling. It's hard to explain unless you're into photography and unless you've done it and it's in your DNA. It's really hard to explain.
Well,
Uh,
I can relate to that one. In an outside way, my father was huge in photography, and he would take a day like a Saturday or Sunday, lock us out of the only bathroom in the house, and that's where he set up his darkroom. He had the chemicals, he had the bins, the
yeah,
trays, and
yeah,
you had to use the clothesline to
yeah,
or the shower curtain line, so to speak, to hang
yeah,
up that, like you said, the
yeah,
Kodak paper, and just see
yeah.
what kind of art that you actually
Wi-
created come to life from those
It just
chemicals. So,
it just floated. It just floats through the water, and you're just like, oh my god, amazing, amazing. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
what were some of the things that you loved to photograph back then?
Back then, I think it was just friends. I was looking at some photos, and remember Guess, the campaign Guess for the Guess clothing. So we were all wearing Guess clothing. It was like the acid wash jeans. It was I went to high school in La Jolla High, and so all my friends had pools except me. And for some reason, we were always by the pool, and I was always trying to catch the reflection of the model or my friend posing by the pool. That's what I remember, trying to catch that reflection. That's the mailman. The other dog loves the mailman. So I remember that, and it was just something that the reflection. It's just something that really attracted me for some reason. I don't know why.
Well,
Yeah.
it reminds me when you said guess, and I think that, and really the 1980s, you bring up acid wash the jeans. I mean, the culture, the fads, the trends of the 80s to me can't be matched. In the 70s we had incredible births of music, but in the 80s it was really fashion. But then, we had Benetton. They were
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
first brand that really focused on people, focused on diversity, focused on the
Very
models,
progressive. Yeah.
very progressive. Now, when Benetton started doing those types of ads, did you kind of pick up some vibes from that on what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I don't like simplicity in the photos, except for Robert Mapplethorpe, maybe with the simple, beautiful flower just coming out of onto the screen or onto the paper. But I like that variety. I really like that. And when I used to see the African American or African models, I would be just amazed. I would be because everything was just very Caucasian, if you will, and which was great. It was amazing, amazing photography. Herb Ritts, I think, it was one of the main photographers that I started to see on GQ magazine. But when you start to see those 31 flavors, if you will, it was just so beautiful to see, and they had no apology for it. They were just gung ho, and it's so funny because we talk about the 80s and early 90s too for me. I recently became friends with a British model who used to model for all the GQ magazines that I used to see on in the 80s and 90s. So it's a full circle, and for me, Benetton is also a full circle because I like to use faces that are not beautiful, faces that have more charisma, more character than beauty, than the standard beauty. And I forgot about Benetton. That's interesting that you bring that up. That's thank you for that flashback.
Oh, well, I'm a huge Formula One fan, and back in the day, Benetton when they hit the scene, it was really a cross between their marketing campaign, but and you brought something up that I don't think a lot of people notice today. That in today's photography, especially magazine covers, they
Hmm.
always go towards light skin. If it's African American, the marketing moves towards light skin and in a way maybe Hispanic and Latino. But with Benetton, you brought up the point. They brought in the African models that they were very, very dark, but
Yeah,
because of the campaign, you saw it, you noticed it.
yeah,
And, and in a way, we see a little bit of that maybe in Vogue, but we don't see a lot of that like that bold, I guess in a way, maybe shock value for some, but it worked. And
yeah.
maybe that'll come back one day.
Yeah, I think a lot of photographers. I know David LaChapelle, who's another photographer whose work I love. He pushes those boundaries. He pushes the beyond the norm, and he focuses more on characters, more on the charisma of that model that just jumps at you through the pages. And when I photograph people, I like to see that. I like to see what they bring to the table because when you do photography, the photographer and the model, it's a symbiotic relationship, if you will. It just can't be the photographer shooting or the other way around. It has to be a collaboration, if you will. And that's why I like Trash and Tears because living in LA, in Hollywood, Long Beach, I live close to Hollywood. I have a lot of actor friends and I make films and I use all those actor friends and models. And when I started doing Trash and Tears, I would call my actor friends and I would say, hey, come with me, let's take a ride around downtown. There's a lot more trash in the past years, and there's an area that's accumulating all this trash. And to me, I would drive by these areas and just wonder what is happening, why. So I would invite the actors and I say, let's have a conversation on the way to the location, if you will, to the set, which was a trash. And we would talk about the conversations that would come out in our car would be about hoarding, would be about living paycheck to paycheck. Some of the actors, starving actors, they would say, that could be me next month because right now I'm in the couch surfing with friends, but next month I don't know what's going to happen. And so with those conversations, Trash and Tears became even more important for me, if you will, to explore those social issues that affect us all, and it could be us at some point if we're not careful, if we're not um, consistent with our lives, if you will.
Yeah, and I saw some of the photographs you did for Trash and Tears. And I never really thought about it before. Bringing up the subject of hoarding, we think of homelessness of being there's mental health issues, there's poverty, people lost their jobs,
Yeah,
lost everything, they're living on the street. And of course, there's drug addiction.
yeah,
Hoarding is, we think of people living in their house and storing up stuff that they probably haven't even looked at in the last 20, 30 years. But
yeah,
with homelessness though, with trash building up, people
yeah,
are trying to grab a hold of things
yeah,
around them that not necessarily giving them comfort, maybe some way, somehow giving them value.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting that your depiction of that was very interesting. And one in particular, I want you to kind of explain to all of us, and I want to show everybody this photo of you have two people, one with a black flowing scarf and another one wearing a red scarf, kind of like they're catching the wind, and you see the
Yeah.
trash build up in the background.
Yeah.
What did your eye see there?
Well, the first of all, the those two models, one of them is now a photographer too. They were so striking. They I did a couple of tests and they just popped on my camera. I was like, whoa. You get those people that they look very normal, very plain on the street, or your friends, they look normal. A little bit on the not so attractive side sometimes, you think, and then you photograph them and you're like, what the heck just happened there? It's just that electricity that they possess, that thing that I hate the word photogenic, but for lack of a better word. And some people just have that, and those two have that. And they were very thin, which I hate to glamorize thin models, but they just did one move, and that was it. They had that thing, the it factor, if you will.
Well,
And
isn't it interesting for photography? I mean, I've been dealing with film for 20 years. By our naked eye, we see things in the natural realm, but then when we put a camera lens to it, and like for you hit the shutter button. Maybe you're still using regular film, or maybe you've gone digital. But to
I do
look at the
both.
viewfinder on the back of the camera, and all of a sudden, it takes on a whole new visual, a whole new feeling and emotion when it's captured versus looking out and saying, okay, I'm going to photograph what I'm looking at. But the difference between looking and seeing what has transpired in the camera are two completely different things.
Completely different things. And the beautiful thing about making films and shooting photos is that you sort of create your own narrative, if you will. And for me, bringing those two models out into the street and their awkwardness and their charisma, and it was one of those things, not to beautify trash, but it was just something that just went really well with those two characters, those two models. And in talking to them, because we would have these conversations again, what do you think about the trash? What about this? What about that? And one of them just happens to recycle plastic bags and make jackets out of them. And I thought, oh my God, that I would never think of doing something like that. And the trash brought up those conversations and say, oh, he would pinpoint plastic bags. Oh, that's a good looking bag right there. If I wash it, I do this, cut it, I could make it part of a jacket. So those are the conversations that strike me. And then I watch their body language. I watch how they move, how they react to something I say, an expression. So when they're in front of my lens, I just say, well, do this, do that. I think the direction for some of these guys were act like ET, ET phone home, and there's one photo where he just goes like this, and it was just so amazing, amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
have you ever photographed the homeless?
I have, and the thing about the homeless is that there's a fine line between exploitation and narrative, or telling their story. And some of them, when you give somebody $1, $5, you're sort of, I don't know, I feel exploited. I feel like I'm exploiting somebody. And especially when they're homeless. If they're a professional model and actor, that's a different thing because that's their job. And a homeless person, obviously, they need $1, they need $5, a quarter sometimes. So I have a lot of photos that I haven't put out there yet, with homeless people, and it's just, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go there yet. So what I've been doing, because I sometimes in Los Angeles, this is just a little side story. In Los Angeles in the 90s on Sunset Boulevard in Silver Lake, there used to be a lady that I think was a hoarder. Later on, it came out that she was a hoarder. She was weird. She was just very eccentric. And what she would do is she would wear like this straight shawl. It was like the shawl did not move at all. It was just like a straight shawl, right? Just imagine like a straight line shawl shaped rectangle, and she would wear her head like really, really, really high, and she would just walk like a zombie through Sunset Boulevard and through Silver Lake, and to me that would be a little bit different. Later on, I found out she was homeless, she was a hoarder, she was kicked out of her house. So it just depends on the situation, but for just to photograph a homeless just for because they're homeless, I'm like, I don't know.
No, I I
Yeah,
agree with that. I think if you were to photograph the homeless, I think it and let's just say it is published in a book or if it's published for art purposes, there needs to be their story has to be told.
exactly, and
Because
that's
we can't
something.
assume, I think too many people today assume that if they see someone homeless, they may look down like, why don't you just go get a job? And people don't
Yeah,
know and don't
yeah,
understand the story. You know, it's hard.
yeah,
I can't imagine the difficulty it would be to start from absolute zero.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
even if you got a job, you still have to save up enough money to eventually get a place to live, and that could take a
And
couple
in
of months.
California, in Los Angeles, forget it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So
And yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
No,
Oh,
no,
I
no.
was going to say you brought up something interesting about photographing the homeless, just because and we got into why not, or why I don't want to publish those photos. I was introduced to a therapist in Mexico City via Zoom, Instagram, and Facebook. Like somebody said here in East LA, said, talk to Fernanda. You're going to Mexico City next week. Talk to Fernanda. I think she would make a great subject for you, a great model for you. And I said, why? Why? And she said, because she's a heavy set burlesque dancer. And I said, okay. And I said, well, does she exploit that, or like, is there a fetish thing around it? I just imagine like dudes, just, in the dark room with cigarette smoke and just fetishing over big women, right? And she said, no, 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 no. She said, the burlesque part, the dancing is very minimal. It's more about how they are treated because they're fat, and how they're taking back or owning the word fat, and interpreting it into a more sexy, and more giving it more of a positive spin-off. So I went to Mexico City, and I met Fer. We only knew each other online, and I met four other burlesque dancers. And they gave me a flyer beforehand, and the flyer was fat burlesque. And the group that I went with, people, they were just like, whoa, what the heck is this? And we went with an open mind. And granted, I went with some academia folks, university people that wanted to go to Mexico. And I said, let's go to Mexico. And they were just blown away, because they were taking back that term, that negative term of fat. And it was really beautiful how they told a story about what it is to be a fat, and how they are treated because they're a fat. Even at the doctor's office, how they are treated when they walk in, they're already being judged because they're fat. And it goes back to what you're saying about, even if you're homeless and you try, it's just not gonna jive with society. Society will probably push them back, because in California it's so expensive, and being fat in California too, or anywhere in the world, is just it's got a bad
Yeah, I mean, the
connotation.
state of California, in a way, when it comes to, let's say, wellness, you're running, you're drinking your green tea, you do your
Yeah.
yoga, and nobody thinks outside the box. But I like you, Juan, for a big reason here, because I like the fact that even with the burlesque, I mean, you have to have an open mind. And what comes with an open mind is listening
Yeah.
and hearing somebody else's story. Through film, it's storytelling with a camera. Half of it's acting, the other half is camera movement. Photography, it's telling a story, but it's like a silent movie because
Yeah.
we don't hear the voice. We may see the emotion in the photos, see the emotion in the eyes or the look of the person. But
Yeah.
yeah, the story has to be told. And I just love that
Yeah.
about you. Now, let me ask you this because I've kind of brought it up. When did you, I mean, are you still taking pictures with real film or 35
Yeah.
millimeter, or have you gone to
Yeah.
digital?
I do both. So I bought a used Leica and I bought a used Mamiya. The Mamiya is a medium format, and you don't get as much as many images because the way it's set up, the Mamiya. But I just love the way film looks. So sometimes those two models that you said with the see-through
Yeah, the
cloth over the
scarves. Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Yeah, so I shot them in film and I shot them in digital, and it's a whole different thing, man. It's the same image, but the texture, the I don't know, the grain sometimes, the depth of field, everything is just beautiful and it's completely different. Yeah.
Well, which one did you publish?
That one was digital. So what I did is, I'm a horrible editor. I hate to say that and admit to it, but a lot of the times, either you're very technical or you know what you want in your image. I don't want to say talented because that's just so weird, right? But it's a rule in photography. You're either very technical or very talented. Um,
What is your thought of especially today, and it's more rampant than ever. What is your thoughts on photo manipulation?
I like it. I think it's good, but again, it has to be when you manipulate a photo, you need to have a point of view, and you need to make sure that the point of view that you're trying to project comes across. If it's just photo manipulation, just for photo manipulation, it can be very gimmicky, and it won't work. Yeah,
Because you
I'm
want to
doing a
tell this,
camp.
yeah, because you want your photos to tell the story.
Yeah, and I'm working with the East LA Women's Center in East LA. They are a domestic violence and sexual assault prevention and resources for women, and they asked me to do a campaign of hoops and red lips. And I don't know if you know, but there's a term here in LA, and I think it might be national or around the world. The bigger the hoop, the bigger the hoe. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, you
uh,
can say it.
Okay, so the bigger the hoop, the bigger the whore or hoe, and also red lipstick. A lot of people I know, for me in Mexico, when I lived in Mexico, red lips were associated with sex. Women being easy. So what the East LA Women's Center is trying to do is trying to own back the hoops and the red lips, and trying to let people know that, or to men mostly, that just because you're wearing red lips and big hoops, it doesn't mean that you're a whore. It doesn't mean that you are easy. So they're trying to own that back, and kind of like the fat burlesque, and or similar to the fat burlesque. So I've been doing this campaign for them. These photos, they're gonna publish one photo a day. For the month of April, for SAM, which is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So they're going to publish one photo a day next month. And somebody said, well, wouldn't it be cool if we do like black and just red lips? And I'm like, I was like, sounds cool in theory, but it's kind of cheesy. In my mind.
Yeah. Yeah,
In my
well,
mind.
yeah, it would come across as an advertisement for the red light district.
Something, right? So I was just kind of
Yeah,
like,
but it's
yeah,
funny because, well, no, I'm not saying funny as haha, but
yeah,
that would have worked to me. That would have worked really well during the Me Too movement.
yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah,
maybe it needs a
yeah.
resurgence because nobody's paying attention to it now. But Juan,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you though. Tell us about this exhibit of Illuminate LA.
So the exhibit, the LA County put out a call for artists, photography or art, and somebody said, you should submit that photo because I think there's a category for your photo. And what the photo is, first of all, the photo I shot in 5 minutes. It was like a selfie in 5 minutes. I put the timer on, I ran in front of the lens, and I was hoping I catch the frame. So I took the photo in 5 minutes, and when I saw it, I was like, "Whoa, there's something here." And so I just kind of held on to the photo. I put it on Instagram, on Facebook. People saw it, people loved it. And when the LA County LA County Arts and Culture put out a call for photography and art to exhibit at Grant Park across the way from the government offices, the City Hall in Los Angeles. And I said, okay, so sometimes you have to write like an essay and do all that stuff. And I was like, oh my god, I can write a screenplay, but writing something where it's like I am blah blah, blah it just does for me. I'm like, no. So the question was, what historical significance does this image, whatever you submit, has to you? And that was easy because the sombrero, it was my grandfather's sombrero, and my grandfather is from Mexico, from a little town called Huejuquilla El Alto, Jalisco, that nobody's ever heard of, and it's so hard to pronounce. And the sombrero, my grandfather used to always wear sombreros when he was horse back riding, when he was taking care of the cattle, when he was doing fences, rock fences, or barbed wire fences, or just herding the cows. And uh, and, and he told me, or somebody told me a story. I can't remember if it was him, but I heard it a couple of times that he would wear that sombrero when he crossed the border in Texas, uh, when you used to pay 50 cents. You would pay 50 cents to cross the border, and you can go back and forth. It wasn't as like it is now. And I thought 50 cents. I was like, what kind of world was this? So anyway, so the sombrero, the way it came to me, the sombrero was, not only did I grow up seeing my grandfather wearing it, I saw my father wearing it, and then when it got to me, I started posing with it, and it had all this history, all this my history, because I would always see him wearing a sombrero, and I would always see sombreros in our house, in our pueblito, in our ranch. And there was always sombreros around, and I thought, okay, well, I'll talk about that. And I talked about the 50 cent crossing of the border, and I talked about how I got that sombrero just in 2018. And in 2018, for some reason, we couldn't go to the pueblito. So the people that were taking care of our house there, my grandmother's house, I called them and I said, can you meet me in Zacatecas, which is 4 hours away from that pueblito, and bring me the sombrero? So two young ladies that took care of the house get off the bus, travel 4 hours, get off the bus, and we meet each other right in front of the cathedral in Zacatecas, and they hand me over the sombrero. And I thought, oh my God. It was just all around. I mean, I spoke from the heart, and they really liked the story, and they loved the image, and they published it. Yeah,
Wow. Well,
and
what
I
kind of
sold.
man? Well, what kind of man was your grandfather?
He was a man's man. He was a man that salt of the earth, the sweetest guy. He wasn't my biological grandfather. But he was my grandfather. A lot of people think, oh, they're not blood. Therefore, there's no love, there's no this, there's no attachment. You don't have to be blood to be family. He was family from the heart. He took care of us since we were tiny, and always gave everything he had. One of the things about when you grow up sort of poor and in a small town where you don't have a lot of luxury. In that small town, it was when grew up there. I lived there for 3 years, and they had no electricity. They still use gas lamps, those lamps that you put gas in it and you light up, and hopefully you didn't burn your house down. So he would tell us stories about La Llorona, scary stories. He would sit us all out on the street, on the sidewalk by the house, and he would tell us scary stories, and everything was pitch black, and it was just beautiful. And he would cut pears with his big knife. He would cut the pears and put chile on it and give us pears and prickly pears. I don't know if you know what prickly pears are,
Mhm.
tunas. So he would peel those off and sit the kids all around. It was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Just amazing. And then I remember running through the streets, trying to catch the fireflies, because you could see them. It was so pitch black, you could see the fireflies. Um, yeah, he was just an amazing dude,
Well,
amazing guy.
where can we find El Sombrero de Miguel Lopez?
On my website, juanescobedo.com, you'll be able to see that sombrero de Miguel Lopez. And then I've started photographing other sombreros that have some meaning to other people. So I listen to the stories, and I borrow the sombrero, and I take a selfie, a professional selfie, but without my face.
Ah, wow. You know, I remember going to Monterey. Oh gosh, I think it was 1980, I believe, maybe 81.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
you know, even back then, the square, just an absolute beautiful city, a city in which back then you could take the carriage rides through the city at night.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
just, you know, I just have great memories of Monterrey, Mexico. Just a beautiful
Yeah.
place. But for you, you're also a filmmaker. You had a particular short film, a Marisol, which was
Yeah.
Oscar qualified. What was that like?
You know, the just the word Oscar, uh, you're like, what? As a filmmaker, that's your ultimate dream, your ultimate goal in life, as an actor or as a director or producer, a filmmaker. And Marisol was based in a true story, a story that I heard a few years before 2018, before we started writing and producing and all of that. And it's about a little girl who was well, let me back up a little bit. In East LA, there's a round table of community partners, if you will, nonprofits, social workers, government officials, police, sheriffs. They all come to the table, and we have a quarterly meeting on what's happening in East LA and surrounding areas, and what we can do through whatever resources we have to improve and to provide resources. And there was a social worker sitting next to me, and she was playing with a cigarette lighter. Remember those lighters that you push into the car, and it's metal, and you pull it out, and it's like a round circle, just hot, just burning red, yellow. So, I asked her, I said, are you trying to quit smoking? And she said, no, I have to present on a case. So when she said that, I was like, on a case? I was intrigued. I was like, what do you mean on a case? And then she said, well, I have to go to the Department of DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services, to present on a case that I have on my caseload. And it's about a little girl who is punished. And the way she's punished is they burn that cigarette lighter, they put it on the stove. Once it gets really hot, they put it on her back to punish her, because for whatever reason, they think she's being bad, and that's her punishment. And I thought, you're kidding me, right? And she's like, nah. She's like, and that's not even, the beginning of it. She said, what they do also is they put boiling water, and they dip her hands in the boiling water to punish her. And she was saying that the little girl's hands were scarred, and she had no sensation in her nerves in her hands. And I thought to myself, what kind of cruel world are we in, where this is happening to innocent children, to the helpless? Children rely on adults, on people to guide them, to nurture them, to give them love. And here are these two people, two parents, just abusing her that way. And not only that, those two things, but also locking her in a kitchen cabinet without food overnight because she misbehaved, did whatever she did. And I thought this story needs to be told, and it needs to be told the right way, very accurately, sort of similar to Emmett Till, where the mother refused to close the casket because she wanted people to see what the people had done to her son, how they brutally mutilated his face or his body. And I thought, okay, well, let's do it that way. Let's not do it for gratuitous violence, but let's do it because Marisol, the little child, the character, would want you to know what was happening to her. That was my opinion. We want you to know what was happening to her, and bring that message that this is not right. This is happening in the world, and this needs to stop. And so we wrote the story. We shot it. It was going to be a feature film, and then we ran out of money. We looked at everything we had, and one of the actors, the lead actor, said, "You know what? You don't have any more money. You have a short film here. We can 2 days that we shot it, one weekend, just put everything into music, editing, and package it, and you're good to go." And I thought, okay, yeah, that could work. And then I started looking into the academy, how that worked. And that was a whole different experience, because the academy, there's a reason why they are so exclusive. They have their rules and the way they do things. And I was just really blown away by the way they do it, and why they are so exclusive, and why people want the Oscar, because they do due diligence, and they research. I think I was looked up back and forth, my whole history. Somebody got a hold of it, and so what happened is they saw the film in Santa Monica, and I was like, they saw the film. I was like, I think I went to every screening, and they were all my friends. I'm like, how did they see the film in Santa Monica? So they saw the film in Santa Monica, and then about 2 weeks later, I get an email from the Academy saying, "Mr. Escobedo, we saw your film in Santa Monica at the Lamleys, I think it was. We would like to know if we would be honored if you could give us the script for our core library for research, for filmmakers to come and research your script." And I looked at the email, and you know how you get those scam emails and you think, this is a scam. It's too easy. So I got up from my desk in East LA in my office, and I was working for a nonprofit at the time. And I said, "Rick, come take a look at this email. This is kind of weird." A young kid that used to work with me, and he looked at the email, and then he said, "Congratulations." I was like, "Legit?" He said, "Legit. I think it's legit." So then I responded to the Academy, and I said, I was still doubting myself, and I said, "I think you have the wrong Juan Escobedo, but I appreciate it. Let me know if this is real." Something stupid like, "if this is real." And they replied back and say, "Mr. Escobedo, we would be honored if you could give us your script for our core library, for the Margaret Herrick Library for the Oscars, the Academy." And so it's
That
there now. It's there now. Yeah.
wow. So, what kind of are you currently working on any new film projects now?
I am. I have animation. It's around dogs. My three rescues and the one that passed away this morning. It's an animation on how to, well, more about awareness, how people mistreat animals, and how animals are just more than your pet. They become family members. They become therapy dogs. They become just unconditional love. So I wrote a little comedy, and I have a friend who worked for Disney and is animating it right now. I hope to have something in a few days, so we'll see. And also Blaxican, which talks about the Afro Latino experience, uh, uh, but it deals with generational trauma dating back to the slave era, and how that trauma that the slaves uh, well the mistreatment and the trauma that they received in that era, how it trickles down to families now. So it's through the eye of a foster youth being aged out of the foster care system. So it's kind of heavy too. I like drama and I like comedy, so hey,
Well, it
yeah.
sounds like an Oscar in the waiting.
You know what? From Mr. Bond's mouth to to the celluloid gods.
That's it. I mean, I can see you, and the winner is Juan Escobedo. I can see you
Yes,
walking up
yes,
there. I can see
yes.
you getting that golden statue and giving your acceptance speech.
Oh
But
my
yeah,
god.
it's a process. I have talked to so many film directors who have been nominated, who have won, and the experience is really surprising. None of them ever see it coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see it coming. Yeah, for the nomination or for the qualification and the library, I didn't see it coming. I was like, "What?" You know.
And that just makes it more
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in Mexico, remember the movie El Norte? Remember that movie? I don't know if you. It's not 1990. Oh, 84. It came out, and it was Gregory Nava, the director. I think he won an Oscar for it. I think. Um, so we had lunch with one of the actresses from that movie, and we were talking, and she's like, "So Juan, what do you do?" Blah blah blah. And I told her, and then she says, "Well, I'm an Academy member, so she gets to watch the films for the Academy." So I was like, "Okay, next time we get a nod, I'm gonna hit you up and throw in your vote." But anyways, yeah, it was just really interesting how people. I mean, in Mexico, I would never think that an actress in Mexico was a member of the Academy. So yeah, I mean, it's just not that it couldn't happen, but yeah,
Let me ask you this, and this is a subject sometimes I don't like to get into because of the fact that everybody has their opinion. But
yeah.
for you, Hollywood and diversity, is it a media narrative that's been created, or is there an actual problem?
You know, early on for me when I was doing more acting, um, it was interesting. It wasn't just about brown, but it was also about weight. And I was a skinny dude. And I remember going into I did an audition, and I took out my shirt. It was for Budweiser or something, and yeah, and then she goes, "Oh, you could be the fat friend," and I was like, "I'm not fat," but again, on camera, you gain weight. Uh, so I've never really I've never wanted to think that way, whether it was happening or not, because for me it's all about the talent, the work that you do. Are there issues? I'm sure there is,
Yeah.
but then what I do is I look at on the flip side, I look at Eddie Murphy. I look at Chris Rock. I look at even Will Smith. These people are working. These people are making a lot of money. Jennifer Lopez, she broke down, but again, she's beautiful. She's stunning. Um, so I don't know, and I hate to jump on that wagon, but to me, what it really boils down to is one color, and that's green. If you can make the
Yeah.
money,
That's
you know,
exactly right. And yeah, I
yeah,
don't like getting into the subject either because of the fact that a lot of people don't understand the word. Um,
yeah,
and people, you get it's almost like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but sometimes the wrong squeaky wheel gets the grease they don't deserve. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
yeah, yeah.
But more importantly for you, what life lessons have you learned to help evolve as an actor, filmmaker, and a photographer?
For me, I learned this from a teacher, and this French troupe. It was a French troupe that I auditioned for in Cal State LA. They were Canadian and French, sort of like a dance group, and they had me audition for them. It was called Blue Palm, and I auditioned for them for a production. And one of the things that I learned from them is that improvise. have your do your research and have your script or whatever, but also don't forget to improvise, because it's not always going to be perfect. You can do, I mean, and I met people that are just like, if something goes wrong, they just freak out, and it's like, no, relax. Nothing is perfect. So I've learned my life lessons in this world is that nothing is perfect. You're gonna fail, so go into it knowing that you will fail. And people say, oh, but you gotta be positive, you gotta be this. Yeah, you're setting yourself up for a reality check that's just going to slap you around, and you're not going to be ready for it. So some of the life lessons to me is that if you're going to fail, fail really good. I mean, just fail. And then when you look back, it's going to be a learning lesson, and you're going to look back and you're like, oh, okay, that was good. That wasn't that bad. And you build this thick skin that next time you're confronted with similar situation, you already failed, you already been there, you already, what do you have to lose? So those are some of the life lessons that I've learned. But also in life, nothing is perfect. You can dream of your White House with the pick fence and all that stuff. But guess what? Life is gonna come in and say, no, 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 no. This is gonna be your life, and you have to improvise in life, on stage, on film, on camera, and everything. So learn to improvise.
That is excellent advice, Juan. I can tell you that. I mean, I had a guest who is a Hollywood actress, and she told the most amazing story because she had worked with Clint Eastwood, and Clint relayed the story of when he worked with Meryl Streep. And he said the problem was that Meryl would sit there and do 100 takes in a scene. And finally, without telling her, he filmed her while she was just, let's say, warming up in a way.
Yeah,
And then he sat her down and showed her the difference, and said, look, being perfect, sometimes you kind of lose the ability to actually
yeah,
be human. And
yeah,
she learned it from those words and that guidance. And so, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to fail, but it's a life lesson. Um, don't let it get you down. It's not the end. If you're still living and breathing, you got another day to
yeah,
make it right. And
yes.
as you know, Juan, as I know, when it comes to film or television or even taking a picture, sometimes we have to do another take till we get it right. But in a way, that's the
Yeah.
learning experience and the fun of it.
Yeah, yeah. There's been times when I take a photo and I'm like, I didn't catch the tip of the finger. And it's just kind of like, beautiful photo, but if I can just get that tip of the finger in there and not cut it off. Yeah, so and there's always take two. Yeah.
There's always take two. And what kind of
Yeah.
legacy would you like to leave for mankind?
I love storytelling, and I hope that people use storytelling to bring awareness on issues. As human beings, we've grown so much and we've gone so far, but we've also done a lot of damage. So I just hope that people use stories to really. I mean, storytelling has been since the beginning of time, with the caves and the paintings, and there were stories there. So I just hope that people really focus on storytelling to bring awareness and to make a little dent in the world, if you will.
I
And be
agree with
kind, be
that.
kind, be
Uh,
kind. Be
in this
nice.
day, in this day and age, be kind. And as we lived in the '80s, we used to say, "Be kind and rewind." And
Yeah.
and I think in a way there's some truth there that maybe there's a life lesson to maybe we should rewind a bit and back up
Yeah.
and kind of maybe
Yeah.
erase some of the damage that we're actually causing now. But yeah, be kind, tell the
Yeah.
stories, bring forth the emotion, and reach the heart. I
Yeah.
read something one the other day that said, if you reach the heart, you can reach their mind.
Oh my God, beautifully said. Yeah, just some of these books that are burning books, and I mean, didn't we learn from Hitler? I'm just kind of like, and I remember my junior high watching my Jewish professor play these films of the World War II, and him just bawling in the back, and me, the whole class, and it's just like, didn't we learn anything? Uh, but politics, the
Yeah,
art
I
of
know it.
politics.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, Juan Escobedo, you've got to check him out. Now, tell us your website again so they can see the El Sombrero del Miguel Lopez as well as your other
It's
works.
yeah, juanescobedo.com. And you can also see I've done Lydia Chlamydia, Gary Gonorrhea, which kind of goes with your show, the doctor show, and the little vignettes on STDs, but with characters, and it's really funny.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
check those out, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, hey Juan, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the program. I
Thank
enjoyed
you
it. I
so
hope you
much.
did too.
Oh my God, you're amazing. You're in Texas. My perception of Texans are changing a little bit. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, my uncle lived down in Harlingen, just literally across the border from Mexico, and he worked the crops down in
Mm.
that area for many many years, and it was so funny. Because he was in the sun so long and so became so dark skinned that a lot of the
Yeah.
people thought he was Hispanic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but he knew Spanish very, very well. And a lot of people didn't realize that he also had a side business for hunters. But you would get people like Frank Sinatra
Oh,
and
I love it.
that would come down and say, "Hey, take us across into Mexico, and we can
Yeah.
go shoot quail." And my uncle would always laugh because he said, we would bring back quail, but none of them ever killed any of them because I killed them all because they all got drunk. They all passed out. And I had to make sure that they had quail so they could go brag to their friends that they actually went
uh,
hunting.
Hilarious. I love it. If we have an extra minute here,
Sure,
one of my
absolutely.
mentors, Mr. Bloom, uh, at ELAC, he's the one that taught me film. He's the one I'll call him up and say, "Hey, what about the F-16 rule, the sunny rule, or the great scale and blah blah blah." And he said that when he was young, he used to ride race cars with Clark Gable. And I thought, oh my God, how amazing is that? And here he is teaching me film. Yeah.
I
So,
just love little stories like that
yeah,
because there is so much there. And I love the history of film. I love old Hollywood, the golden era of Hollywood.
I love it.
And,
Yeah.
some of the camera techniques used back in the day, I think, are now being completely overlooked. And we give too much to the moviegoer. We show
Yeah.
them too much. We need to allow them to use their imagination where you don't have to show everything. It's
You need
kind
a
of
little
like
bit of mystery. Yeah.
yeah, when you would have you would like to have the man and the woman and they would walk into the bedroom and the door would close. We already
Yeah.
know, but
What's
you
gonna
don't have
happen?
to
Yeah.
show it. So
Yeah.
put that mystery back into filmmaking, and I think that the quality will be there. But as
Yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
Juan, I'm just going to speak it forth, like I said before. One of these days, hopefully, we'll hear that the winner is,
Ah.
and you'll be walking that stage at the Academy Awards. Hey, we
I
already know you
appreciate
have the
that.
talent.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So
Well,
I'll keep you posted on everything.
oh, please do, and you're welcome back. And ladies and gentlemen, head over to juanescobedo.com. Check out the artworks. Check out some of those vignettes that he was talking about. And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we have our musical guest coming up right after
Who's that?
this.
Who's
The
that?
Lacs are up next with Hellraisers in Heaven. So get ready to rock a
Ah,
little bit. So
all
we'll be right
right.
back.
There are 3 common forms of hair loss in women. No matter what type you have, they aren't something you should have to suffer with. Hair Active from Primrose Leaf helps slow down hair loss and provides your hair and your scalp with proper nutrition. Join the thousands of people who are back to combing and brushing their hair again. Hair Active strengthens hair, improves texture, and increases fullness. Call Primrose Leaf today, 844-376-0007. That's 844-376-0007. Or visit us at primroseleaf.com.
You have pain. From muscle pain to back pain, Curamed Acute Pain Relief has you covered. Curamed Acute Pain Relief is tough on pain, not on your stomach and liver. Our triple action pain formula is a breakthrough in pain relief in an easy-to-swallow liquid gel. Safe, effective. Love your results or your money back. Tackle your life again in no time.